Being successful is a state of mind. Your story is not average. You got a story to tell. Let's tell it.
For those of you that engross yourself in something so much with your family, especially sports, anybody that comes from a big sport family, you know that conversation with your parent, if it's your mom or your dad, it's a tough one.
What up, man? Here we go on another episode, and again, another day. Hope y'all out there continuing to strive to be successful, man. I got a guest that I want to introduce you guys to today, man. This has been my guy for, I met him in college. You know, he was a little weird dude, but I'm weird too, so it's okay. He was my teammate, man. We did a lot together. You know, I was able to travel to Vegas multiple times with this guy, to Arizona, um, all type of different things. Man, he's a solid guy. He has a story to tell. He's doing some big things for himself, and so hopefully we can get into that. And like I said, before we get into anything else, this is a no judgment zone, man. This is just a platform where we, discuss different things that we're overcoming in hopes that it could touch you and move you in whatever realm you're in right now. So, without further ado, if you guys can join me in welcoming my guy, Caleb Franklin. Whoop, whoop, what's good? What's good? What's good? Nothing much, man. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Man, we're just gonna jump right into it. So, like I said, we just want to talk about different things or a specific thing that you have had to overcome or are overcoming, and say it, like I said, in hopes that it could touch somebody out there that may be going through something similar or maybe the exact same thing.
So, one thing that I've had to overcome that I'm super proud of is gotta be my transition from two different sports. For those of you that know me, know this story. For those of you that don't, it's one that was one that was tough. It was one that was fun. It was tough, fun, easy, and everything you can think of all into one. When I was growing up, my biggest passion, and it really still is, I still love it to this day, was the sport of wrestling. And my whole entire family and my whole entire demeanor with that, and everything that we did was all pertaining to that sport of wrestling. And even both state champions, high school All-Americans, all that stuff, getting these offers from D2, D1 schools to go wrestle. You don't hear that type of thing from where I come from. So that's how invigorated and how much we engrossed ourselves in that sport, because we wanted to be so successful at that. Well, when I got to college, my whole goal was to wrestle for Nebraska. I've always wanted to wrestle for Nebraska, and it didn't really go my way. I wasn't the best at school. I didn't do too well on my ACTs. I took it like 3 or 4 times, and I just wasn't hitting that standard. So I decided to try out Midland. Midland University is a college in Fremont. It was a small NAIA school that I went to that maybe some of you guys already know. We had just gotten to campus that day, and I remember telling my dad, I was like, you know what, let's just go. Let's sign with Midland. I'll wrestle for a year, and then I'll transfer to Nebraska. So made it through a whole year, actually a year and a half. And during that first year of college, I met a girl named Julia. And long story short, she's my wife now, and I never left Midland. And it got to a point at Midland while I was wrestling, I just was kind of falling out of the love of the sport. I wasn't doing very well in the sport. I wasn't enjoying the practices anymore. I was losing that love for competing for that sport. And I remember talking to my dad about it, and I had finally come to a realization. One day in practice, I was wrestling this guy, a guy that I usually whoop up on. I mean, I don't know whatever a better word for whoop up on is. And he was literally, for lack of a better word, kicking my ass. And I didn't care. I didn't care that he was throwing me on my back. I didn't care he was throwing me on my head. I was just whatever, you know? And I had everybody in that wrestling room screaming at me, telling me, come on, Caleb, you can do this. Why aren't you doing this? You're better than that. And I didn't care. And so I remember getting up from the mat and thinking to myself, dude, this isn't for me anymore. I remember walking out of the middle of practice. I remember the coaches yelling at me, asking me, Caleb, where the hell are you going? Get back here. I remember walked straight out of the wrestling room, straight to the shower. I took a shower, went up to my room, and I bawled for like 30 minutes. Because I knew that one, if I was to tell my dad that I didn't want to wrestle anymore, there was going to be a fight. a big one. Because for those of you that engross yourself in something so much with your family, especially sports, anybody that comes from a big sport family, you know that conversation with your parent, if it's your mom or your dad, it's a tough one. And that was probably the scariest thing I ever went through, was having the courage to go up to my dad and be like, Dad, I don't want to wrestle anymore, you know? Because I would have lost my scholarship. I mean, Midland's not a very cheap place to just pay. I just don't love the sport anymore and I don't want to do this. And I remember he didn't say one word to me. It was probably the exact opposite of what I thought it would go like. I remember him getting up from the kitchen table. My mom was sitting right there. He was thinking, because he never told me. He just got up and walked out. So that was basically the end of that. The very next day I went and talked to Coach Horner. I said, hey man, I'd like to join track. And he goes, well, what do you want to do? Well, I said, well, I don't know. Why don't you just throw me in whatever, you know? Maybe at the time I thought I would be a good distance runner because I was a wrestler and that's all I did was go run 3 or 4 miles to go lose weight every day. He said, why don't you go try out and be a sprinter? So one day I remember getting in the blocks, and I remember trying to get into blocks. If any of you track athletes know what it's like to get into blocks, this was probably the funniest thing you would ever see. I remember just destroying everybody that was there. And so right then and there I was like, wow, okay, so maybe I'm going to be a sprinter. So, and I remember going into that, telling Coach Horner, hey, I want to compete at UNL. He just laughs at me. He goes, yeah, go ahead. Well, I get into that race. I come out of the blocks finally, and I just destroy my hamstring. So that was the end of it for indoor season. And finally, after that, I remember that whole training from indoor season all the way, because track and field has 2 seasons. There's indoor season, there's outdoor. I remember talking multiple times with my head coach, and not even my head coach, our sprinters coach at the time was our head coach too. I remember talking with him multiple times and just asking him, you know, what do I need to do to get better? Because once I got hurt, you know, I started getting lazy again. I started watching how people were training and how they were doing this to get better in this sport, and I started feeling a little more of that love for a sport like I did with wrestling. And so I would always go up to coach and be like, hey, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to do this? What do I need to do to do that? And I remember he would always kind of brush it off, you know, kind of like, oh, whatever. And maybe that's my fault because I didn't really care too much when I first got there too, but I just remember him brushing all my questions off and kind of giving me the bare minimum. And I remember looking at these other dudes who were running this 100, and I think the winning time, the top 3 times were 10.5, 10.6, 10.7. I remember looking at those times and I remember going, wow, I really do not belong in this sport. I just ran 11.9. Pretty sure a couple girls had ran a little bit faster than I did. I mean, this is college, you know. I'm trying to switch from one sport to another in a college where everybody's fast. You know, it doesn't matter. Obviously, except for me. And so I'm trying to sit here and basically learn a sport that all these people have done since they were really little kids, kind of like me, you know. So that whole summer, it seemed like it was a constant back and forth battle. After I had ran those times, because it was just that whole season it just seemed like it was a wash, you know. I remember people coming up to me and telling me, Caleb, coaches don't really think you should be running track. Caleb, just let Caleb do what he wants. He's never gonna be this. He's never gonna be that. And I remember during that summer, and even the summers leading up to it, leading up to now, I remember old wrestling coaches that would used to come up to me and they'd be like, Caleb, why are you doing this sport? What do we need to do to get you back on track to get on a wrestling mat? And then even track coaches, it seemed like every time I would ask them questions, they would just laugh at me. So you think you're going to run this? Well, you got a lot of work to do, my friend. Well, I would say that reaction, those people saying that type of stuff to me completely changed how I started thinking about the sport, completely 180. I remember that I had like an epiphany. I don't know. It was that summer, and that summer after that terrible season, I remember just sitting down there and just thinking, you know what? F this, right? I'm gonna prove every single person that has ever laughed at me or has ever told me that I couldn't do this, that I can. I'm gonna be the best to ever do it. And I'm gonna do whatever it takes to be the best to ever do it. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and explain to you how I led up to do this and that, but I will say that from 2012 all the way up to, let's just say 2016 to be safe, I ran that 11.9. Remember I told you guys I ran that 11.9 in the 100 in 2011. As of right now, I am currently the school record holder in the 100-meter dash. I am a 8-time all GPAC conference sprinter. I'm a second-team All-American in the 100-meter dash. And in my mind, I'm one of the best sprinters to ever walk that campus at Midland. Ever. And the only reason I'm there now is because, one, I didn't say no. I said that, you know what? I love that you're saying that about me, and you know what? I'm gonna prove all you guys wrong by showing you how great I can be. Basically, is what I did. I took the passion that I had for wrestling, I took the hard work that I learned from wrestling, and I applied it to track. And it did wonders for me. And I'm still competing to this day. I compete professionally. I've traveled all over the country to go run. I've ran with some of the top sprinters that have ever walked this planet. And I've loved every single minute of it. And it's gotten to the point now where I love this sport more than I've ever loved track or ever loved wrestling, because of what I was able to do on my own to get to where I'm at today. So if that's one thing you guys can take from this, is don't let somebody tell you you can't do something. Don't let somebody tell you you can't do something. It's pretty simple, I think. I mean, we can do anything we set our minds to. And if that's one thing anybody can take from my story, it's don't think just because you were brought up a certain way that you can't do something a different way because that's how you were brought up. Or don't think that you can't go run a half marathon at 55 because you've never ran a half marathon, and let alone run before in your whole entire life. We can literally do. That's one thing I never understood until I started this sport, was you can do anything you set your mind to.
Dude, man, I know these guys are probably getting tired of me saying it, but like I'm speechless at the end of hearing these powerful things that we as just people just overcome. I think so many times we just kind of get caught up in what's going on right now that we just don't observe or put the attention on those things, man, because that drive and those things that you explained, man, like people saw your name on the board for the record. People saw you maybe with a medal here and there, but they didn't know the things that you went through and the things that created that drive for you. And I'm just, excited and you know, happy that I was able to not only experience that, but just, you know what I'm saying, to be a teammate, not even a teammate, your brother. But I want to make one thing clear here before we go any further. He wasn't the fastest guy on the campus. I was. Any day I can still take him right now with my busted knee, but we're not gonna talk about that. But nah, man, like I said, that was solid, bro, and like I really appreciate you sharing everything. That was beautiful.
I mean,
anything else you wanted to let the people out there know?
yeah,
man?
if anybody
Tell them a little bit
I'm
more
gonna
about
tell them. Yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna do that. So Julia and I officially have our own.
Who's Julia again? Who's Julia?
Julia's my wife.
What?
Julia's my wife. I just got married in June, so we have a new track club. It's a youth. It's a post-collegiate, so anybody who's looking to get extra work in, and a master's track and field club. It's based in Arnold, but we are more than willing to help anybody through online training or anything like that wants to get any extra work in. It's called Quantum Athletics, so if you can look us up on Facebook, or you can find us on Instagram at quantum.athletics, or you can email me or shoot me a text. I think my phone number and my email is on our Facebook page, so just go check it out, and you guys can, hopefully we'll get better together. So
Cool. Like I said, that's definitely dope. I couldn't go without recognizing that, man. My man has really been on this grind for some years now, and I admire him, man. I love this guy. Like I said, this is a brother that I never thought I would, come across. Honestly, an older brother. I'm the oldest of all of my brothers, so it's kind of cool coming in contact with individuals that are older than you and that you look up to and different things like that, man. I watched this guy do some crazy stuff on the track, man. This man holds records. This man's name is in history books since he was a kid, and that's instilled in him, man. And he's gonna instill that in his kids and continue to do that with his family. So, like I said, I hope you guys picked up something from that. But you know what I'm saying, if that's it, what I want to do, I want to, share. Give you a shirt here, for coming through, messing with us,
Yeah.
Not Your Average Success Story t-shirts, he's already been on board a little bit, but I want to, keep him on board. So that's my gift to you, man, for you, pulling up and, like I said, sharing your story. So there's nothing else you got for me, man.
That's it, man.
Okay. Y'all see it, man. Y'all see it. But if there's nothing else, man, then I appreciate it, dog. Cool. All right.
Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me.